Greetings Diski fam, welcome to a brand new season of the Sisonke Diski Chat. I'm Len Muleko, and this is a show where we speak about everything that has to do with South African football. And in season 3, we are going to do it bigger and better. And starting with the first episode, we are joined by legends of the game. I'm gonna start right here closer to me, Simphiwe Dludlu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And right next to her, Mr. Matthew Booth. Welcome to the show.
At the far post, yeah, thank you.
At the far post. I want to get straight into it. I mean, we saw how last season ended, the 21-22 season. Just overall, what was your overview impression of last season?
I think there was a lot of drama on the field, off the field, changing of coaches into the season, halfway and nearing the end of the season. The relegation battle, I think that was the most intriguing for me, to see how teams learn and some teams how they don't learn over the years that they are playing professional football. So yeah, that has been really, mind-blogging for me.
Matthew, we know with Sundowns over the past couple of seasons, when you start the season, you almost look at them and be like, okay, cool. Position 1 is already sorted. Let's look at everybody else, where they're going to finish. Looking at the traditional big teams outside of Sundowns, were you surprised at where some of them finished, the likes of your Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates?
Yes, I was, and disappointed because we need those teams to challenge. We need those teams to win silverware. But what was refreshing last season was that there was a new group of challengers. Cape Town City, Stellenbosch, Royal AM, they have now come to the fore. And I don't think Sundowns are going to run away with it this season to such an extent, but I still feel that there's probably a 5 to 10 point gap still between them and the chasing packer. And
Coach Simphiwe, to what Matthew's saying, why is that the case? What is it that Sundowns has that's able to give them such a gap away from all the other teams?
I think the start is the coaches. They've invested in themselves. Everybody was mocking the idea of co-head coaches and a head coach in there, and all of them can be head coaches in any team, any day. But the brains decided to be together in making sure that they build into the players, individual players, into group tactics, individual tactics, group tactics, and the whole team, the club, the style, the culture, and it infiltrates throughout the Diski team, the academy teams and all of that. And I think that's what's still going to separate them from the rest, picking up on what Matthew is saying, because they do things differently. Rulani is a master at putting attention to detail, because you see him explaining in depth how he wants his players to play. And you look at Coach Mangoba, when he speaks about the opposition and all of that, you can see there's details that are looked at definitely to say, if this left back of Kaizer Chiefs is not playing, maybe this one could come in. So they profile each and every player. You look at Coach Kompela, he comes in and he's not just a father figure, but he's also a football brain that says, how do we bring both worlds together? Because him and Coach Mangoba, they are about Baghdad.
Yeah.
And then Coach Rulani is more new age.
Yes.
And all of them are able to bring and stir a pot that brews so much greatness into it. So I think that's why they'll still dominate for the next coming years, because they are not training and competing for PSL. They are competing for Club World Cup. That's what's different about them.
Matthew, you mentioned that the traditional big teams need to be coming to the fold to be winning silverware. Looking at the setup now, and from what Simphiwe has just said, a couple of changes were made. Both teams coming into the new season with new coaches, an injection of new blood here and there. I'm going to start with Kaizer Chiefs. Obviously, Coach Arthur Zwane is now the head coach. How do you see those changes coming to fruition, in a sense that Kaizer Chiefs is now going to be a different breed for this coming season?
For the past 6 or 7 years, I don't think their their transfers have been up to standard, up to Chiefs standards, generally speaking. There have been some decent buys, but generally it's been pretty poor. And that boils down to their systems that they have at the club with regards scouting, keeping track of players, getting the right players in. And in that way, Chiefs and Pirates, I feel, can compete with Sundowns. Sundowns, you can't compete with them financially, but you can compete with them through scouting, clever scouting, your data capturing, and your youth development. Now, in Chiefs' situation, they have a fantastic opportunity to continue from the last 2 seasons and it was only because of the transfer ban that we saw the likes of Mashiane, Nolbo and Sifame, etc. That's a great pity. We can't have that happening again. And it's great to see the likes of Shepherd and Zwani in charge now, because I'm certainly hoping that will continue and give the youngsters an opportunity to showcase their talents, because that's been really stifled for a number of years, you know. And Pirates likewise, you know, they have bought players, but it's almost like they've bought these very expensive pots and pans, but they haven't really kind of ordered them in any way. You just open the cupboard and they're just there scattered, you know. You've got to have your best pot, your second, you know.
And use the right temperature as well, you know, for cooking.
So quality squad, and I've put them in as challengers over the last 2 seasons, but they've disappointed because they haven't been really consistent in their starting lineup as much as I would want, especially in that midfield, which was just really cluttered there.
Coach Simphiwe, we look at, from what Matthew is saying, there's obviously those youngsters that are coming through for Kaizer Chiefs. Orlando Pirates, on the opposite, took one of their youngsters to Cape Town Spurs, that's Boitumelo Radiopan, who was actually performing very well in the DStv Diski Challenge. Do you think that the youngsters in this country are not necessarily given the opportunity at a proper young age for them to actually be exposed to the game at that level?
I think the biggest thing that we don't speak about a lot is they are incredibly talented and young enough to play in professional football, but are they equipped enough to go play there? Because there's great players that you see once off in a tournament and all of that, and we immediately assume they can go into the professional setup of things, and when they get there, they are bombarded by a lot. Professionalism, punctuality, the eating habits. You can't go clubbing any day. You're not on social media as much as you want. You need to be as focused as much as you can. Those are the things that they are not done before they get into the professional side of things. That's why now the coaches that see these youngsters and want to promote them into the senior teams, it's not that easy, and it happens once off. And when it's once off, that young player comes up, then they mess up, then they out of the system for good.
Yeah.
Because it's not organic. It needs to be organic, where you identify these young players and say, here is a bridging gap. And the DDC is really a great bridging gap for it, because if you take it back, we had the league. What did we call it before?
The DStv league?
No, before the DStv league. Remember, we had a league where the ones that are fringe players that are not playing, then they get to the reserve league.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we had a reserve league where you'd find these young players playing there, and then even the ones with injuries and all of that. So it was like a bridging league in there that would help them sustain the pressure, understand the dynamics of playing in a professional setup. Because here you get relegated or promoted. You win cups or you don't. So I think there's a lot of reason for that. And some of the coaches are not ready to nurture and train that young group of players into the PSL. So they don't really induct them into the PSL. They are thrown in there. Can they swim or not? And then we are quick to say they are not good enough, they are not ready. But we are not really putting the necessary measures on the ground to make sure that these young players, when they go there, they are ready to play. You are right about Radiopan. I felt it was the perfect time to throw him in. He was the top goal scorer, player of the season, and when he got into the first team, once or twice he was coming in, but you can't do it once or twice and then not bring him in. Sesane is the same thing at Orlando Pirates. So we just need to make sure we bring them in, let them play we had Abuswah,
Yeah.
that came in and played in the PSL, and for so long they made mistakes, but how do we make it a cultural thing in our league? Remember, every league all over the world, they have a culture and a style to say this is how we do things in our league.
So is it a case of, there's learning on the job, but there's also a coach who's like, I play a youngster, next thing you know, I'm going to be shown the door. Is it like those two worlds sort of like at a collision course?
Well, again, you go back to the systems and youth development. Part of development is not only about developing their technical skills, but my mantra these days, whenever I do group sessions with kids, I say it's not necessarily about how you can trap the ball or your first touch or how you shoot or how you head, but it's more about perseverance, determination, being on time, listening to the coach, being able to process an instruction and then going and doing it on the field. That's a skill. That's a hell of a skill, and that will often set you aside from somebody else. And to the point on Radio Pioneer, I think the silver lining is the fact that he's gone to Cape Town Spurs. Sean Bartlett, one of our best strikers ever produced in this country, so he's going to learn a lot from him. But I agree with Simphiwe that I would have loved to have seen him getting thrown in there into the first team.
Now with this youngsters, some of them coming in at Chiefs, we do see a lot of them coming in playing in the first team. We have the legends of both teams actually, Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs, now departing from the club. In terms of like having that figure, a person who you look up to, a person who is a stalwart at the club, do you think those youngsters are sort of like going to be missing something out of a Happy JLA or a Bernard Parker, for instance?
It's a catch-22, because you check what was happening when a Bernard Parker was there for these youngsters. Were they benefiting a lot from him or not? So that's when the club also says, let's keep him in a certain position in the club so that we can still benefit from him. Or they are able to say, we're really not getting anything, his help so much, just with him being there. He might not be motivating the team more, or he might be motivating the youngsters, even his peers that are there. Because if you look at the legends at Mamelodi Sundowns, most of them are in coaching positions, managerial positions, and all of that. In other clubs, it's not the same. And you look at Happy JLA, it was either he gets a position there or he wants to still play. So he was given that. And also, it has to be discussed with the ambitions of the player as well. Because you must not chase me away because I don't want to take a certain role, or I must not be kept in the team because you want me to take a certain role, whereas I don't see myself as part of that role and how I can execute it, because everything needs to link. If it doesn't link, then there's going to be, some disjointment in there, because 1 minute they are there, 1 minute they are not there. I just feel like there's a big role that the club needs to play in teaching and inducting the players into the club culture. When you go overseas and a young player is signed, a week before they come in, they get to tour the club, they see the club, they see the museum, they get to hear about the history. Maybe they even go on tour with one of the legends that's in the team. They take him through the history, the club mantra, all of those things, so that you are really coming into the team, understanding the magnitude of that club. Because what we've seen with Kaizer Chiefs, with Orlando Pirates, it's really been disappointing to see that they almost like the players didn't understand what it meant to wear that badge. And if you are there inducted to see exactly, hey, I'm standing on the shoulders of big giants, So I need to make sure that coming into the club, am I ready for it? Because, if you think about it, before we Chiefs got to see the ban, they were signing players before. Your Katsiviros, there's a lot of players that were there before the ban. What type of players were signed into? Were they Chiefs material? Were they Pirates material? Were they Sundowns material? Right now, I don't know the difference between old Sundowns and new Sundowns, because I see excellence. But we can tell the difference between old Orlando Pirates, new Orlando Pirates, old Kaizer Chiefs, new Kaizer Chiefs. And there's so much that needs to be done in between to make sure that how do we go back to making sure that the club culture is persevered, is kept, is shown at every corner you go, that law, we're Chiefs, law, we're Sundowns, lo, we're Orlando Pirates. So I think the clubs also need to dig deeper and do more for themselves so that even the coaches that come in, Matthew, they need to understand that what type of youngster comes in.
Yeah.
If you are signing a Simphiwe Dludlu into a Kaizer Chiefs, is that youngster ready? Are they really blowing up wherever they come from? Because you can't just sign a youngster and say, no, they are Chiefs material, where else you are hoping they'll blow up at Chiefs. No, they should be blowing up where they come from. Just like, and Radiopan is a perfect example. He's been blowing up from School of Excellence. He was in Matric and he was blowing up. He comes into the MDC, he was blowing up. He comes into the second season of MDC, he's the radio man. Yeah. It's all about him, you know. So going into Pirates, he already knows what it means to excel from being in the junior systems of Orlando Pirates. And the ones that are not coming from the junior systems, you need to really make sure you are bringing in special players.
Now, with the transfer window, obviously it's not closed. That's where you go by the quality that you want to utilize for the upcoming season. For you, again, looking at the big teams, a Chiefs, a Pirates, a Sundowns, who for you was or managed to do very good business in this market so far?
I think Chiefs. I think Sekhukhune as well. I think they went on a raid, particularly at Pirates. I think they've done it very well for themselves. But even last season, Chiefs, there were positive signals. You know, this season I think they've done even better. And with those young players that have come through and had a season's experience, that will only bode well for them. I think Sundowns has been pretty quiet, but hopefully that remains that way because I think they're very settled. They don't need to change anything. I think they've gone in for Allende, who's possibly coming in from South America. It seems like he plays as a 10, more of a creative player to replace the loss of perhaps Vilakazi, who's left. And then of course the goalkeeper, the big signing, Williams. That will be interesting to see how they play out, you know, with Moini and Onyango. And Goss, I think SuperSport's done some good business with Goss going the other way.
So, I mean, in the case of Sundowns, like you just spoke now, how interesting it's going to be with Onyango and Ronwin. Is it a case of they make sure they get the best quality, and out of that best quality, there's then another layer of, okay, we need the best of the best for you to be able to make it into the starting 11?
Yeah, it's smart of them, because if you go and check the clean sheets there, all 3 goalkeepers or 4 goalkeepers that played, they have clean sheets, which means there's quality. If Onyango is not there, you know that Goss comes in, Peterson comes in, Peterse comes in, or even Moini comes in, and you are not, you know, worried about injuries that are, and obviously I think right now they're looking at the ages. I mean, both Onyango and Moini are 37 now. And Mzansi's number 1 right now is Williams, and he's only 30. And I think it was befitting for them to really make sure that they give Goss a chance to go and play somewhere, because I was feeling like he was getting wasted away as young as he was. I mean, he had a great season at Wits and then got signed, but we didn't really get to see much of him. And I just felt like he needs to be out there to play, give competition to Williams in the national team, because we can't just only have a handful of South African goalkeepers as first team, first choice, because at Chiefs you've got Vuma and you've got Peterson, you've got Velimota, you've got Williams. Can we carry on? It's not that easy. And if you check the 2 at Chiefs, they're not starting lineup as well all the time. So it means if anything happens to Williams, what then? So right now I think it's good business. I agree with you, it's good business for SuperSport to say, let's have Goss, and him also allowing himself to go. Because that's the other thing, players maybe don't want to leave because a big check and, you know, game time, some of them are like, I'm okay with getting a big paycheck instead of playing.
And it could be boding well for him because he's reuniting with Gavin Hunt.
Absolutely. He's reuniting with Gavin Hunt, who I think the youngsters that are at SuperSport, they've got experience now of playing a season or 2, being in the DDC, they've come up through nicely. So I think with him taking the job, he looked at it and said, how else can I come into this team and impact better? Because that is a coach that has so much history and success with super sport. And we all know Coach Gavin Hunt is a coach that comes in and says, can you do the job? Can you not do the job? Young or old. And we see with him bringing Tlajwayo that he still wants that stability. I'm glad they're reuniting so that, I mean, Tlajwayo needs a break.
Yeah.
You know, he needs a break to find himself again, come back. This was our best defender. This was our captain of the national team, even at Pirates. This is a player that comes from Ajax, Cape Town, through the ranks, not just overnight and you become a bad person, bad player. I don't believe in it.
No, he's got a fantastic character as well, and he can play right back and right centre back. And so Gavin often goes for players that he's played with. Trust, stability is one, but also trust. And certainly Supersport needed some experience in that back line. Butlebeye's, Mkwanaz didn't quite come to fruition for a number of reasons. Bashira, a lot of experience, but at left back. So he definitely needed someone to fill in that centre back role. Filius has done fantastically well with Ditlokwe in his first season as well. You know, but just from a safety point of view and a versatility point of view, being able to play in two positions and the character that he is, excellent signing.
Before we get to the golden question, we see now that Orlando Pirates have announced that Innocent Mayela is going to take over the captain's armband. With Chiefs, with the departure of Bernard Parker, we don't really know who is probably going to take over the captain's armband. Obviously, if Tumelo Nkune is not playing. Let's start with Mayela. What do you make of that decision?
I think it's a brilliant decision. He's got so much experience playing, and he's had injuries, come back strong. We saw him in the Confederations Cup as well. I think he's a great player. You don't really get to hear a lot about him not being a great team player and all of that. I think he's got a great character. He doesn't speak much off the field, but on the field he's got that command, because you know there's hierarchy everywhere you go, and I think they chose him seeing how well he's been blending with the youngsters, because he's still also young himself. You know how he's able to acclimatize and bring in young players, and I think now because they also gonna push him a bit to left center back, because he's not the fastest anymore as an out and out full back. And you can see with how they are really reshuffling that centre back position, because bring in Koki, bring in CBC, it means they want that stability. They could be going with 3 at the back. You need leaders at the back. Yeah. And right now, Koki was a captain also at Amazur. CBC was a captain at Golden Arrows. And with Mayela coming in, you've got already a solid back line that has leaders in it, you know. And for me, I think, I hope they got to sit with the players, yeah, and do, you know, a SWOT analysis to say this player, that player, because sometimes you do that as a coach or as a team to say pick your captain. Let's see it. They might have their own captain, yeah, because you don't want to bring in a captain that will not be for the players and match, you know, the gap between the management and the players. So I think I like him as a player. He's really great at what he does. So I just hope he assumes that position, takes ownership and leadership, and he must not just take the title, but really be the leader on the field.
And for you, Matthew, in terms of, from a Chiefs perspective, looking at the squad that's there, obviously some of the senior guys are not there anymore. Who do you think would be the ideal person to lead the Kaizer Chiefs team for the upcoming season and possibly for the future?
Oh,
yes.
It's a difficult one, and I can't name anybody, to be honest. The initial reaction was probably Dolly. But is he the type of person who's going to be able to scream and shout and dictate and get angry, or is he going to lead by example, you know, by the way he plays? Because those are the two different types of captains that you generally get. So yeah, it's a difficult one, you know. But they've got to be very careful in that regard, because talking of Mayela, the issue of captaincy was actually what undid Tlajwayo when he originally arrived at Pirates. You know, when you arrive at a big club and there's this mini scandal about who should be a captain between himself and Jele, was just not what he needed. And from then onwards, you know, everything went south for him. Yeah. So when you arrive at a team or when you discuss issues of that nature, it's got to be a smooth transition.
So, golden question before we wrap up. I know it's pretty early, not a single ball has been kicked, but top 4 from just the market activity that you've just seen thus far.
I think Sundowns first. I think Cape Town City second. Kaizer Chiefs third. And I think Orlando Pirates will come good, and that'll be the top 4.
Okay. And for you, coach?
I think I'll even stretch it to top 8 a bit. I do see Royal AM a bit. It's just that the coaches that they've appointed there do not stick long in teams' history. So that might cause an inconsistency for them. But I'm looking to see what Maritzburg is going to do with Maduka being at Maritzburg.
Yes.
I agree with his top 4.
Don't you think Royal AM will have like the second season syndrome? I mean, we saw it with Swallows FC. They were on the brink of going back to that dark place that they didn't want to go back to.
The thing is, with Royal AM, they still have a group of their stable players that played. That's why I'm saying the only inconsistency would be the type of coaches that are there. Cabo Zondo being there, Dance being there. How much freedom will they have? How much stability and consistency will they have as coaches? I mean, at Gallants, Dance did well to make sure that they didn't even smell relegation. You know, they competed in cup games. You know, so he left a stable Marumo Gallants. Coach Cabo hasn't been at competitive professional level for a while, but you're a coach till you die, you know. So that's going to be a telling point when it comes to them. Cape Town City, I'm excited to see how much Eric Tinkler is gonna go a step further. His trajectory has been incredible.
Yeah.
From Maritzburg that he saved from the relegation playoffs, to them finishing in the top 8, to being in the top 5 at some point, and then he went to Cape Town City. Where did they finish? And the type of players that he has there, the youngsters that he's bringing in, they will give Sundowns a run for their money, Chiefs, Pirates, and everyone else, because they've been consistent with doing that. So far, I think last season, they were the one team that really shook Sundowns a bit to say they score goals anytime against Sundowns and they match them pound to pound. So yeah, I would agree with that top 4. Just want to sneak in there might be Maritzburg. With Chiefs, the only worry I have is that will these youngsters not want to prove each other wrong or right and forget about the focus? Because a lot of them are coming in at the age where they are competing with phones, they are competing with the next best car, they are competing with the next best girlfriend, they are competing with a lot more. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to stimulate each other to do great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that top 4, yeah, I agree with your top 4 to say.
So the agreement is that Sundowns is going to win the league again, and then everybody else will fight for a CAF position. Well, Sundowns and Cape Town City.
Nobody has really given us 100% confidence to say they are competing with Sundowns at the level where they are. Sundowns they are flying, and flying not only on the field, with things they are doing off the field. I mean, you listen to the analysis, you see the players, and I like what Matthew mentioned. He said, if a great player is able to take what the coach is giving them and execute on the field, that Sundowns team, the coaches could sit off the bench and stay there. They'll know what to do. They know how to win games. How many teams in the PSL are able to say if Coach Eric Tinkler gets a red card, or if Dance would get a red card and they have to play themselves? How many of them will be able to continue running the show?
Okay. Good things are happening at Sundowns. But anyway, I'm going to hold you to your prediction. We might revisit it before the season ends or towards the end of the season. Same for you, Matthew. We'll look at the list and be like, okay, Matthew said Sundowns, Cape Town City, Chiefs. and Pirates and cross-compare and see if you're right. Other than that, thank you very much, Matthew Booth, for joining us here on the Sisonke Diski Chat. Simphiwe Dludlu as well, thank you very much for joining us. And you two at home as well, thank you very much for joining us for the first episode of Season 3 of the Sisonke Diski Chat. We will see you on the next one.